happened. When I was a child, I witnessed elders being burned alive, people being slaughtered before our own eyes. In other words, I survived the genocide that took place in Southern Sudan, but I didn't survive to be taken into slavery. After my village had been burned down over and over, my father decided to take his family to the city of Malacan in Southern Sudan to seek refuge. It was in Malacan where I was kidnapped by an Arab man brought to the northern Sudan, the city of Posti, for some of my fellow Sudanese, in which I was given away by that gentleman as a gift. My fellow human being, during the holiday, as what is coming before us, we always have a list of the gift that we want to give to people that we admire. And we never find that a human being is always included in the list that will be a gift to somebody that you admire. In Sudan, you can have a child from Southern Sudan and you give it to your relative, to your cousins, and it's still going on up to today. As a child, I was being robbed with my dignity and the love that I supposed to receive from my mom and my dad. I was turned into a piece of property by the gentleman who kidnapped me in the Southern Sudan. In other words, I was forced to do the works that usually being done by the donkey. In a suburb of Posti, a village of Fushishoya, people don't have running water. The donkeys are the ones always carrying the water for Runanites into the houses. But with that family, since they have a slave, and we're talking about a child, that job had to be done. So I'm the first to get up in the morning, and the last to go to bed, even that I don't have a regular place like a human being, like any child that I call bed. My place can be any place, even the place that where they kept the animals. In which by itself, I have to make sure that place is clean because this is where I will spend the night. I will wait when it comes to the time when people are eating, waiting for if there is anything that we left over. In other words, I have to rely on the leftover that is my food. For 3.5 years, I went through terror. A terror that I cannot even explain to you tonight in a few minutes that I have, even though a terror that I cannot explain even for a year. What I mean by that, I was kept constantly under terror. Somebody may decide to beat me up by saying that I called you and you didn't say yes so loudly. Because what happened was that at that time, I have only one word, and that word is yes, and yes to everything. My fellow human being, envision yourself and close your eyes and put yourself in a position where you cannot say no to anything. And that itself will explain to you a lot what I mean, the terror that I went through. I was constantly being beaten that even I did nothing wrong. I didn't have friends. My friends is my patience and my hope in God, assuming that one day somebody may come and realize that the child should not go through what I'm going through. Even the kids in the neighborhood, they will decide for fun by saying, look at Abi, we should be a slave. And they will again beat me up. By itself, I cannot defend myself. All I have to do is to cry for the mercy. But unfortunately, for 3.5 years, that mercy is not there. Yes, of course, we are here in Holocaust Museum. We are here because of what happened in Germany. We are here because an evil man went and slaughtered so innocent and being mentioned before that the world did nothing. Of course, Southern Sudan, for a very long time, when the government in Khartoum slaughtered them from the first war in 1955 until 1972, the Khartoum government slaughtered 1.5 million Southern Sudanese, and nobody said anything. Again, there was peace agreement being signed in 1972 that became known to the world as the Addis Ababa Agreement. Southern Sudanese felt that the Northerners are genuine when it comes to peace, in which the Southerners, they embraced that peace, because to them, 1 minute in peace even better than 1 month in war. Again, Khartoum was not genuine. In 1983, the government of Nimeri decided that he wanted to declare and he wanted to bring the Islamic law as the law of the land. And the Southern Sudanese went and argued, how can you bring the Sharia law at the time that we have an agreement between us? And because Southern Sudanese are Christians. And Nimeri went on to justify his position to the nations and telling the Sudanese that these peace agreements Southern Sudanese are talking about, it is peace agreement in the peace of paper, in which I was the one who signed it, and I have every right to introduce the law which is good for the nation, and the Sharia law is the law of the land. And for those who will not follow the law of the land, I will left with no option except to introduce the jihad of them. And indeed, the Southerners felt that they had been betrayed, and the war broke out in 1983, and the government in Khartoum declared jihad on the Southern Sudanese, and they went to recruit every young man in the country for the first time to go and fight the jihad war in the South. And they went out so ruthlessly, with no mercy of anything. They slaughtered Southern Sudanese, and 2.5 million of them perished. And again, the world did nothing. Even though the international community and the place I call United Do Nothing Nations was watching. They was watching and being mentioned by Ambassador before that the UN would be sitting in a place with food in their hand, but they cannot go to the Southern Sudan because they was not given a clearance, because the South was declared as a war zone. Yes, my fellow human being, probably you know the tragedy. The Canadian television went on in 1987, at the time when people like Congressman Gary Ackerman from New York were calling that there is a genocide taking place in Sudan. But nobody was listening. Even our government, even our elected officials in the Congress and in the Senate, they even didn't listen to their fellows, including the choir being put together by the Congressman Ed McLean on the issue of Southern Sudanese. And the government of Sudan went out so ruthlessly, destroyed every single village in the Southern Sudan, left 7 million Southern Sudanese wandering between nations and nations, walking back and forth. They have nowhere to turn, because if they come to Northern Sudan, they will end up being enslaved, and they'll keep being taken into the slavery, to the point where the United Do Nothing Nations, for the record, when the UNICEF went and begged the court that we can even buy a human being in Sudan, the UN had to pressure the UNICEF to withdraw their statement. In my opinion, it's supposed not the statement have to withdraw. They slightly have to be the one to withdraw instead of the statement from the UNICEF. But who cares? Because these are the Christians, the infidels, the backward peoples being slaughtered in the name of Islam.